Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The wind howled like a ghost through the frozen fields of Vardra Colony. Snow fell in thick sheets, covering everything in white silence. Ellis pulled his coat tighter as he walked along the narrow path between the metal fences. His boots crunched. The snow in his breath came out in heavy clouds. He had just finished delivering supplies to the mining outpost on the edge of Sector 3. The colony was quiet, as always. Too cold for conversation. Too cold for anything to survive outside for long. But then he stopped. Ellis frowned and turned his head. There it was again. A sound. Soft. Faint. It was not the wind. He stepped off the path, boots sinking into the snow. The sound came again, a yasi, small, broken cry, like a child. Ellis's heart beat faster. "Hello?" he called out, but the wind stole his voice. He followed the sound until he reached a pile of old cargo crates near the wall. The snow here was deep, untouched, but something moved under it. He dropped to his knees and brushed the snow aside, and then he saw her, a small figure curled up in a ball, bare feet, thin arms, skin tinted light blue, almost glowing. Her body shivered violently, and her eyes were shut tight. She wore only a torn cloth wrapped around her shoulders. Ellis stared, frozen, an alien child. Alone. Dying. Hey, it's okay," he said gently, pulling off his thick coat. She opened her eyes slowly. They were wide, glowing purple, and full of fear. "Don't take me," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "I'm not here to take you," Ellis said softly. "I'm here to help." He wrapped her in his coat and lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light. Too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Her body was ice cold. Ellis held her close, shielding her from the wind, and began walking quickly toward his snow cruiser. "You'll be all right," he whispered. "Just hang on." Back at his outpost, Ellis placed her gently on a heated table near the fire. The room was small but warm. Tools hung on the walls, and old supply crates served as chairs. She didn't speak, just looked at him with wide eyes still shivering. Ellis gave her a warm drink. She took it with trembling hands and sipped slowly. The heat made her breathe easier. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked down, hesitating. "Luma." He smiled. "That's a pretty name. Mine's Ellis." Luma looked at him again. "You're human." "Yeah, you're not like the others." Ellis raised an eyebrow. "Others?" She shook her head quickly, curling into his coat again. "Bad ones, cold, loud, they left me." Ellis felt anger rise in his chest. Whoever left her out there in the snow. They had meant for her to die. But why? He didn't ask more questions. Not yet. "You're safe here," he said gently. She looked around, unsure. "This is safe? As long as you're with me?" Later that night, while Luma slept wrapped in 2 blankets, Ellis sat by the window, staring out into the snowstorm. He couldn't report this. The colony laws were clear. Unauthorized alien life forms were to be reported and removed, but he wasn't going to do that. He had seen her eyes. She was just a child, scared, alone, freezing. And now, she was his responsibility. A soft noise behind him made him turn. Luma had gotten up and was standing by the heater, holding his coat tightly around her small frame. She looked at him. "Thank you," she said softly. Ellis smiled, then stood and walked over. "You hungry?" She nodded. He brought her a warm bowl of stew. She ate slowly, carefully, like she wasn't used to eating real food. Every few seconds, she looked up at him, like she was checking to make sure he wasn't going to yell or hit her. He didn't. He just smiled, cleaned tools, and let her eat in peace. When she finished, she whispered, "Can I stay here?" Ellis nodded. "As long as you need." Luma sat beside him, close but not touching. Why did you help me? She asked after a moment. Ellis looked down at her. Because no one else did. At 2:30 a.m., Ellis woke to a strange hum. His tools were rattling, the room temperature dropping fast, even though the heater was on full. He walked into the room and froze. Luma was sitting in the corner, eyes wide open, glowing softly, and the cup of water beside her was turning into ice. Ellis stared at the cup as frost crawled up its sides. The heater was still running. He looked at Luma. Her skin had turned pale blue again. Her small hands trembled on her lap. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, not wanting to scare her. She didn't look at him. "I didn't mean to. It happens when I get scared." "What happens?" She looked up, eyes shimmering with guilt. "The cold." Ellis sat down slowly, a few feet away. "You're not in trouble." "But I froze your water. I've broken my entire kitchen before. That cup will survive." Luma blinked, then she smiled. A small, real smile. Later that morning, Luma helped Ellis clean the front room. She wiped a table carefully with her sleeve, humming softly. She was still wrapped in his coat. It dragged behind her like a cape. "Have you ever been here before?" Ellis asked. Luma shook her head. "I don't remember much. Just snow. And running and the box they kept me in." Ellis paused. "Box?" She nodded. "It was loud and dark. They said I was too small, and they didn't want to feed another mouth." Ellis felt his jaw tighten. "Who were they?" She looked at him. "Humans. In red coats, with shiny boots." He sat down on a crate, breathing. Hard. That sounded like corporate guards, private security hired by mining companies. Ruthless, cold, and always quiet about their mistakes. They must have dumped her out here. To die. Ellis walked over to a shelf and pulled down a soft blanket. He placed it over Luma's shoulders. "I don't care what they told you. You matter. You're not too small, and I won't let anyone throw you away again." She looked at him with big, surprised eyes. "You mean that?" Ellis nodded. "Yeah." She slowly reached out and touched his hand. "You're warm," she whispered. He didn't pull away. That afternoon, Ellis stepped outside to fix a broken solar panel. Luma watched him through the window, resting her chin on the sill. A drone flew by overhead, one of the colony's patrol bots. It paused for a moment, then flew away. Ellis returned quickly. "Stay away from windows," he warned gently. "They're looking for anything strange." Luma nodded. "I don't want to be caught. They'll take me away again." "Not while I'm around." She tilted her head. "Why do you protect me?" He smiled. "Because I once needed someone too, but no one came. I won't make the same mistake." That evening, Ellis cooked her a real meal. Hot flatbread, soft vegetables, and a cup of warm broth. Luma ate quietly, then said something strange. "You feel safe," she whispered. "Good. That's the idea." "No," she said, blinking. "I mean, you feel safe. I can sense it." Ellis paused. "You can feel what I feel?" She nodded. "Sometimes, when I'm close to someone." He raised an eyebrow. "That normal for your kind?" "I don't know," she said softly. "I never met anyone like me." Ellis leaned back. "Then I guess you're one of a kind." Later, Luma found a small piece of wire and began bending it into shapes. "What are you making?" Ellis asked. "A flower," she said. "We don't have real ones here, right?" He shook his head. "Not on Vardra. Too cold." She held out the wire flower. It was bent and lopsided, but charming. "For you," she said. Ellis took it gently, placing it on the shelf beside his old wrench. "Best thing I've got in this whole room," he said. She smiled again. But outside, danger was growing. A nearby miner spotted small footprints in the snow behind Ellis's outpost. Bear, not human. He reported it to Central Command. And that night, 2 black-suited men received a message in a dark control room. Unauthorized. Alien activity in Sector 3. Investigate, recover the subject if alive, silence the witness. The patrolman stared at the snow. 2 sets of footprints, one human, blue, and one tiny, bare, and glowing, faintly blue. He touched his comm. We have a breach. Back in Ellis's cabin, Luma suddenly shivered and whispered, They're coming, Theo. Morning was quiet. Too quiet. Ellis stood outside his cabin, tightening the bolts on the solar panel mount. The wind had picked up, and small shards of ice danced through the air like glass slivers. He glanced at the horizon. Clouds thickened over the mountains. A storm was coming, but that wasn't what worried him. Luma had been silent since she woke up. He found her curled near the heater, staring at the door. You okay? He asked gently. She shook her head. I had a dream. There were voices, cold voices. They said, Find her. Take her back. Ellis sat beside her. Just a dream. She looked up. No, I heard them again, just now. But not in my head. That same hour, 2 figures in black coats arrived at the edge of the settlement. They wore visors and carried compact rifles with no colony markings. One of them bent over to examine the tracks leading from the main path to Ellis's outpost. He tapped his comm. Confirmed alien presence. Age, juvenile, unknown species. Accompanied by human male. Moving to contain. The other nodded. No mistakes. We silence both. Inside the cabin, Luma sat very still. Her breath fogged the window as she watched the snow. Then she whispered, They're close. Ellis didn't ask how she knew. He just trusted her. He quickly packed a bag, food, water, heat cells, and his old plasma cutter. He handed Luma a small scanner with a green blinking light. This stays green. We're safe. It turns red. We run. She nodded. Where will we go? Ellis looked out the window. East, toward the old ice tunnels. No patrols go there. She wrapped his coat around herself again. Will it be cold? He smiled. Very. But you're the strongest, one I know. They slipped out the back door quietly. Ellis knew every rock and ditch around his property. He led her down a narrow trench behind a fuel tank, under a rusted pipeline and across a frozen stream. They were moving fast. Too fast. Luma stumbled. Ellis turned to help her, and that's when they heard it. A voice. Robotic. You are harboring restricted alien life. Stop now or force will be used. Ellis grabbed Luma's hand and bolted toward the hill. A flash of light passed his shoulder. A stun round. They reached a gap between 2 cliffs. Ellis pushed Luma in first. He turned and saw one of the black-coated men charging at him. Ellis fired his plasma cutter, burning a hole in the snow, blinding the man with steam. Keep moving, he shouted. They reached the ice tunnels before nightfall. Long ago, the miners had dug through these frozen paths looking for rare minerals. Now they were abandoned and sealed off. Ellis had found them once during a supply run, and kept the location in his head for emergencies. He used his cutting tool to unseal a side door. Inside, the air was colder but safer. They moved slowly through the tunnels. Blue ice walls reflected Luma's faint glow. Her skin shimmered under the frostlight. This place feels like me, she whispered. Ellis raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She touched the ice wall. It sparkled under her hand. I don't know, it's like it listens. The ice isn't angry here. Ellis didn't understand, but he believed her. They made camp in a narrow chamber with an old mining lamp and thermal blankets. As Ellis set up the heater, Luma sat close and whispered, I'm sorry you're in danger because of me. He looked at her seriously. You didn't put me in danger. They did. And I'd rather be hunted than leave you in the snow. She blinked. Most humans don't talk like that. Most humans aren't me. She smiled. Then, Something changed. The ice wall beside them began to glow softly, circles forming like patterns. Luma stood eyes wide. "What is that?" Ellis asked. She stepped toward it. "I don't know, but it feels alive." The wall pulsed once, and then a crack opened, revealing a hidden chamber inside the glacier. Ellis gasped. Inside were strange shapes, floating crystals, soft blue light, and walls covered in alien symbols. Luma walked forward slowly. Her hand glowed brighter than ever. And then, a voice filled the chamber, a soft, melodic voice in an alien tongue. But Luma understood. "Welcome, Starblood. The snow remembers you." The black-coated man stared at the strange ice wall. He fired his weapon at it, but the beam simply vanished. Inside, he touched his comm with a trembling hand. "Subject is inside a structure that doesn't exist on the map." "Then burn everything around it," a cold voice replied. Back inside the ice chamber, Luma stood motionless. Ellis watched her closely as her small hand hovered just above a glowing crystal. "Can you read it?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Not with my eyes, but with my memory." The symbols on the walls weren't just decoration. They moved, melted, reformed, as if alive. The glowing crystal pulsed with her heartbeat. Then a soft hum filled the room. The crystal floated into the air, hovered for a moment, and released a beam of light that formed a figure in the air. A tall alien woman, cloaked in frost, with the same glowing eyes as Luma. The hologram spoke in a long-lost language. Luma translated out loud. "If you are of the Starblood, this message is for you. You were not meant to be a weapon. You were meant to heal this frozen world." Ellis felt a chill, not from the cold, but from the truth. Luma wasn't just some lost alien child. She was part of something ancient. Meanwhile, outside the glacier, 2 patrol ships hovered low over the valley. Their search drones spread out in a circle pattern, scanning heat, movement, and sound. Inside one of the ships, a man in a red coat spoke into his headset. Target was last seen entering the old mining ridge. "Orders?" A voice answered coldly. "Retrieve the child, kill the human." Inside the cave, Ellis helped Luma gather supplies. They couldn't stay forever. But just as they prepared to leave, Luma touched the wall again, and a door formed out of ice, leading deeper into the mountain. "What's in there?" Ellis asked. "I don't know," she whispered, "but something is calling me." They stepped through. The next chamber was breathtaking. Frozen statues of her kind stood in perfect silence. Each one was carved from ice, but not dead. Preserved. Sleeping, Luma walked past them slowly. "I think they're waiting," she said, "for someone to return." Ellis looked around. "Are they like you?" She shook her head. "They're older, stronger, but something happened. They were trapped. I was the only one sent away." Ellis blinked. "You're the last free one." Luma touched one of the frozen figures. It glowed. For a second, the figure inside moved, but suddenly the scanner in Ellis's pocket turned red. His eyes widened. "We're not alone anymore." Above the glacier, the first plasma blast hit. The mountain shook. Snow and ice rained down as the ceiling cracked. Luma screamed and dropped to the ground. The statues around her began to flicker. Ellis grabbed her. "We need to go, now!" They ran back through the chamber, just as the tunnel behind them collapsed. Outside, a group of armed soldiers surrounded the glacier's base. One of them held a strange weapon, humming with energy. He pointed toward the sealed cave. "Open it. She's in there." Another asked. "What about the human?" He smirked. "Burn him with the rest." Inside, Ellis and Luma ran through the tunnels. He had marked every turn on his datapad. "We can make it to the back ridge," he said. "There's a mine shaft that drops into the valley." Luma was breathing hard. "They're going to destroy this place." Ellis looked at her. "Then, we make sure they don't get what they want." As they reached the exit, Luma stopped again. She turned to the cave. "This isn't just a hiding place," she said softly. "It's a memory. It holds the last voice of my people." Ellis looked at her. Can you save it? She nodded. She pulled the floating crystal from her coat and whispered something in her language. The crystal glowed bright, pulsed once, and disappeared into the ice. Now the glacier will remember, she said. Even if I'm gone. Ellis grabbed her hand. You're not going anywhere without me. Outside, the enemy launched a second strike, but the cave walls didn't break. Instead, the ice reflected the plasma back, like it was alive. The soldiers fell back, confused. One screamed into his radio. The mountain is defending itself. Ellis. And Luma escaped through the old shaft, sliding down into a deep frozen valley far below. As they reached the bottom, Ellis looked up. The glacier stood still, glowing like a star. And for the first time in a long time, Luma smiled. They remembered. Me. Ellis collapsed in the snow, his face pale, lips blue. The cold was too strong. Luma fell beside him, crying. Then her hands began to glow, not just soft light, but bright like a newborn star. The snow melted around them, and something inside her changed forever. The valley was wide, silent, and buried in deep snow, no shelter, no fire, just cold wind and white hills in every direction. Ellis and Luma moved slowly, following the old path through the mountain's base. But the storm came quicker than they expected. The wind howled. Snow stung their faces. Visibility dropped. Ellis tried to keep moving, but his body was failing. His boots dragged, his arms trembled, and his breath grew shallow. We need to stop, Luma said, pulling his arm. No, he gasped. We keep going. You'll die, she whispered. He tried to smile. Not today. But after a few more steps, he fell. Luma screamed his name. She knelt beside him and shook his shoulders. His eyes barely opened. Too cold, he murmured. She looked around. No cave, no shelter, no time. She pulled his coat tighter around him, tears freezing on her cheeks. Please don't go, she whispered. Please. She closed her eyes, hugging him tightly. And then her heart began to burn. Not with heat, with memory. Flashes filled her mind. The sleeping statues, the glowing crystal, the voice in the glacier. You were meant to heal. Suddenly, warmth exploded from her chest. A wave of blue light surged outward from her body, spreading through the snow like a breath of life. The wind stopped. The snow melted around them. The air shimmered with glowing frost particles. Not cold, but warm. Ellis gasped, his eyes wide as he woke. What is this? Luma's eyes were glowing like twin stars. Her hands placed gently on his chest glowed even brighter. I don't know, she whispered, but I think it's me. For the first time since she was found in the snow, Luma didn't feel weak. She felt strong. Like the storm had never been stronger than her, just sleeping inside her. They rested in the warm pocket of snow Luma had created. Around them, frost bloomed into strange blue flowers, like the ice itself was celebrating her awakening. Ellis sat up slowly, still weak, but alive. He looked at her with awe. You saved my life. She touched his face gently. You saved mine. First. They smiled at each other. Then a sound echoed through the valley, the low hum of engines. Ellis looked up. Drones, he said. They found us again. Luma stood, but she didn't run. Instead, she stepped onto a snow-covered hill and raised her hand. The drones fired warning shots, yellow beams of light. Luma took a deep breath, and then she opened her palm. A wave of energy burst from her hand. Not fire, not ice, but something new. A spiral of heat and frost that twisted through the air like wind and water combined. The beams from the drones stopped mid-air, frozen solid. Then the drones shorted out and fell, one by one, into the snow. Ellis blinked. What are you? Luma turned to him, her eyes calm. I'm not a weapon. I'm not a mistake, I'm something they were never ready for. They found an old communication tower at the valley's edge, abandoned, half-buried, but functional. Ellis boosted the signal and sent a message, not to the colony, but to an old friend, a retired smuggler named Harn who owed him a favor. Send help, Ellis said, and make it quiet. That night, Luma sat by the fire, her glow dimmed but still visible. She looked at Ellis. I don't feel afraid anymore. He nodded. Good, because fear is what they want. She smiled softly. Then let them be, afraid of me now. But far away in a hidden command center, a man in a red coat stared at the drone footage. He watched Luma melt snow, disable weapons, and create warmth from nothing. He turned to his assistant. Prepare the suppression collar. We move to full retrieval. No more hiding, no more mercy. The lake was wide and silent, solid ice stretching as far as the eye could see. Ellis pointed across it. We cross now, or we don't make it. Behind them, red lights blinked in the snow. Luma looked back. I hear them, she whispered. They brought the hunter. The storm had calmed, but the danger had grown. Ellis and Luma stood at the edge of an ancient frozen lake, flat and still, with cracks spidering under its glossy surface. Far across the lake, hidden inside a cliffside, was an old transport pad, a teleporter that Ellis once helped repair years ago. If it still worked, it could take them far away, far enough to hide again, but it was a long way to cross, and the enemy was closing in fast. Ellis checked the scanner, red dots blinking fast. Less than 2 minutes. Luma looked at the ice. It won't hold both of us. Ellis smirked. Then we don't walk. He opened his pack and pulled out a small sled frame made of carbon fiber. Wasn't sure we'd need this, he muttered, snapping it together. You'll drive? Luma asked. He shook his head. You're lighter. I'll push. She hesitated. What if you fall through? Then you keep going. No, she said firmly. We go together. They started across. The sled skimmed the ice, Luma holding tight, Ellis running behind. The ice creaked beneath them, groaning with every step. Halfway across, Luma froze. I feel him, she said. The one from my dreams, the one who hurt the others. Ellis looked back. From the trees, a figure stepped onto the lake. Tall, black coat, helmet like a predator's skull, a long rifle slung over one shoulder. The hunter. The hunter raised his hand. A sonic pulse hit the ice. Crack. The lake split behind them. Ellis yelled, Go! Luma's eyes glowed. She threw out her hand. The cracks froze midair. Ice rebuilt itself under their feet. Ellis stared, stunned. You're doing that? I think so, she gasped. The hunter fired again. This time the pulse hit the sled. Ellis fell hard, sliding across the ice. Luma spun around, arms up. Won't run anymore, she screamed. The hunter paused. Good, he said through his helmet. Then I can finally see what you were made for. He raised his weapon, charged it. Luma breathed in. The frost around her rose like wind. Her body shimmered. Wings of energy and ice formed behind her like glowing blades. Ellis sat up, dazed. Luma, what are you doing? I'm not scared, she said, and she stepped forward. The hunter fired. Luma held out her hand, and the beam froze in midair, shattered like glass. She moved faster now, not walking but gliding. The ice bent beneath her like it recognized her as its queen. She reached the hunter in seconds. He lifted his rifle to strike, but she grabbed it with glowing hands. It melted. He backed away. You're not a child, he said. You're a weapon. No, she whispered. I'm their hope. She touched his chest and his armor froze from the inside out. He fell, frozen in place, not dead but trapped. Ellis reached her side, breathing hard. You stopped him. She nodded. He won't hurt anyone again. They made it to the cliffside. The old teleporter pad sat beneath the snow. Ellis brushed off the control panel. Dead. No power. Luma stepped forward. She placed her hands on the pad, and her energy flowed into the system. The lights blinked. The portal hummed, the air shimmered. "It's ready," she said softly. As they stood on the pad, Ellis turned to her. "You saved me. You saved yourself. And that was all you?" She smiled. "No. You showed me I was more than what they made me." The portal activated. In a flash of blue light, they disappeared, leaving the frozen lake behind. Far away, the command center lit up with warning signs. Hunter offline. Signal lost. Subject escaped. The commander stared at the screen in silence. She's becoming more than we built. Now she's rewriting everything. The portal flashed once, then they were gone. In their place, only melted snow and frozen silence remained. But in a new sky, under different stars, a forgotten child of ice was about to become a symbol of change, and the human who wrapped her in his coat was now called Father by an entire world. The portal brought them to a quiet moon orbiting a green-blue planet, far from the mining colonies, far from patrols, and far from the cruelty that once hunted them. Ellis collapsed to his knees when they arrived. "I never want to run again," he muttered, grinning as he caught his breath. Luma helped him up, stronger than she looked. Her glow had softened, but it was still there, like the warm flicker of a candle that would never go out. "This world," she whispered, "it feels alive." It was. They had landed on Talverna, a forgotten place once known for healing and peace. Now it was quiet, empty, ready for a new beginning. Days passed. Ellis built a small home by a lake. The air was cold, but not deadly. Flowers bloomed slowly along the water's edge. The sky had two suns, and at night the stars danced like fireflies. Luma walked barefoot through the grass, free for the first time. She spoke more now, laughed more. Sometimes she even sang. She used her powers carefully, growing fruit trees from frozen soil, warming the cabin during storms, and turning raindrops into soft crystals that danced in the air. But she never forgot the cold. One evening, as the sun set in orange and gold, Luma sat beside Ellis, wrapped in a handmade cloak. She looked up at him. "Will they come again?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe not today, but one day, yes." She thought for a moment. "Then I want to be ready, not to fight but to protect." Ellis smiled. "You already are." Weeks later, a small shuttle landed on the far side of the moon. Ellis had called in an old favor, a group of human and alien settlers looking for a new life. They had heard whispers of the child of frost who escaped the empire and healed, broken ground with her hands. When they saw Luma, they bowed, not out of fear, but hope. Luma stood before the gathered families, tall, confident, her glow bright and warm. "I am not a queen," she said softly. "I was thrown away, I was forgotten. But a human found me in the snow and reminded me I was alive." Ellis stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, quiet as always. She looked at him. "And now, I will remind others too." They built a small school, not for fighting, for remembering. Luma taught children, alien and human, how to listen to the ice, how to shape energy, and how to heal without hurting. They called her Starseed, and they called Ellis one thing only: Papa. Years passed. The settlement grew. Ships came and went, but never the kind that brought pain. The frozen lake was just a memory, but in the main hall, carved into the wall, was a single sculpture, a man in a thick coat, kneeling beside a freezing child, offering warmth, not weapons. Below it, words in two languages. Kindness can melt even the coldest world. In the sky above Talverna, a new star was registered by long-range satellites. It wasn't a real star, but a signal beacon built by the settlers. Its name, Hope 1. To some, it was just a new colony, but to others across the galaxy, who heard the story whispered through black markets and refugee ships, it was something else. A new beginning. Final scene. Luma stood atop the hill at night, her cloak flapping in the soft wind. She looked up at the stars. Beside her, Ellis leaned on his cane, older now. "I used to think I was born broken," she whispered. He smiled. "You were born bright, they just couldn't see it." She leaned against him gently. "Do you think the stars remember us?" He looked up, then down at her glowing eyes. "They don't have to," he said. "You became one."